The eighth presenter is Miss Ellen Kawase. The presentation title is What We Think We Know. Please start.
I want to start off with a quick question. What percentage of people do you think have access to electricity? Take a moment to guess. Choose a number from 0 to 100 and keep that number in mind. All right, we'll come back to that number later. This was one of the 13 questions I was asked in a global fact check quiz in my English class, inspired by Hans Rosling's Factfulness. And looking at the 13 questions, I was pretty confident. I thought I'd get at least 9 out of 13 right. Then the answers appeared on the screen. My overall score was 3 out of 13. Me? 3 out of 13? This had to be some kind of joke. But it wasn't. And one of the questions that completely fooled me was the one I just asked you. Many of my classmates and I guessed around 60% for the electricity question. But we weren't even close. It wasn't 60%, it wasn't 70%, and it wasn't even 80%. Today, more than 90% of people worldwide have access to electricity. But what stayed with me wasn't the answer. It was a different question. Why had I been so certain about something I'd never questioned before? Somehow, we had all built a similar image of the world. And that image wasn't completely false. It just wasn't complete. And without realizing it, we were looking at today's world through yesterday's lens. And this wasn't just about getting one quiz answer wrong. I left the classroom, but the question didn't leave me. That's when I realized what the real barrier was. It wasn't what I didn't know, but it was what I thought I already knew. And judging from the answers around the room, it wasn't only my barrier. It might seem like a small misunderstanding of the world, but the picture we carry in our minds doesn't stay there. Because instead, it shapes the questions we ask, the problems we choose to solve, and the solutions we believe will make a difference. And when that picture is incomplete, even our best intentions can risk overlooking what a problem truly needs. For example, imagine funding support for a country. And if you assume that their biggest problem was electricity, you might be building solutions around the wrong problem. And the problem wouldn't be your intentions, but it would be your assumptions. And that is why, before trying to solve problems, we need to understand them fully. The barrier isn't ignorance, but rather it's the unquestioned assumptions. And that's the barrier I want to break. Looking back, I noticed a pattern in the moments that changed the way I thought. They didn't begin with an explanation, but they all began with a prediction, because only then could I see the gap between what I believed and what was actually true. And perhaps that's why I've always been drawn to science museums, because they create these exact moments. We guess, we test, and sometimes we're completely wrong. But in that very moment, we discover there was more to the picture than we first saw. And I realized this process of questioning, testing, and refining shouldn't be limited to places like science museums or experiments. But instead, it should become part of the way we approach the world around us. Because the world we create depends on the understanding we begin with. So, how can we adjust the lens through which we see the world? I believe it begins by creating more moments where people discover for themselves that the picture they started with wasn't complete. And that's why I want to create more predict-first experiences, moments where people form their assumptions first before discovering a wider perspective. And I imagine this happening in places where learning takes place. For example, schools, museums, and even in everyday conversations, not beginning with an answer, but with a question. And today, my first step is this speech itself. Before giving you an answer, I asked you to make a prediction. And I wanted you to experience the same moment I did, the moment when I realized my first picture wasn't complete. But this moment should not end when this speech does. Just as one simple quiz changed the way I saw the world, I hope to create more moments where people discover the lens through which they see the world. And as someone who hopes to solve global challenges through science and technology, I want to carry this mindset into my future. Creating solutions should begin with understanding the real problem and not simply trying to fix what we see. Because the understanding we begin with shapes the solutions we make. And ultimately, these solutions shape the world we create together. That first question was never really about electricity. It was about the way we see the world. It made something invisible visible. And perhaps that's the first step towards seeing the world a little more clearly. Not by asking what we don't know, but by questioning what we think we know. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kawase. We move on to a Q&A session. The mic will go to Mr. Kishitani.
Well, thanks so much for the presentation. I think it went really good. And yeah, I think the way you talk and the way you present was just amazing. I was really, it was really mind-blowing for me.
Thank you.
And for me, the question is, like, what's your action plan, for the future? I think you're still young, you can do anything, and your presentation really makes sense. But I want to hear a little bit more, like, specific action plan that you want to take, and what do you think you can do for the next generation, but like younger generation, to make them realize what you just talking about?
Mm-hmm. And thank you for your question. I think the first thing I can do is make like more predict-first experiences at school, because that's currently the environment that I'm in. And I think that by like questioning our assumptions, making the students question our assumptions, and doing like workshops or exhibits, if I can cooperate with educators in the future, I would be able to ask and make the audience, like the students and everyone, just question what they think they know and update their understanding of the world.
All right, thanks so much.
Thank you too.
Thank you, Ms. Kawase.